Good afternoon. It's about 12:21 Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, September 1st, and I wanted to do a midday update on the trading plan for today. Look at what happened and what may happen going forward. Well, let me pull in here. Well, let's just look at the chart here first. We got the regular trading hours daily chart here. We have crossed through this 618. I'm going to take that off. Okay. I probably ought to put the 786 on here. See if I can pull that up. Well, I'll have to go back and get it later. Okay. I do believe now we have completed this measured move down. Okay, that's important. How about that? Right? So that's resolved. Okay. The next thing that I want to point out is that for now, because in the futures markets, sometimes you can have a wave 4 overlapping wave 1 in some instances because futures markets tend to have extremes. Anyway, you've got, I changed it to a 1-2 for now. Okay. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is the fact that I pointed out in the pre-market over here on the 26th, let's see. No, okay, right here on the 27th, we had a low that I didn't like. We were a bit of a ways from it. We were several points, but it was something that beckoned, okay? And that was obviously taken out in the gap, and we never closed that. But then we had this other low over here that I talked about in the pre-market on 726. So we did come down and we took that out, and the market has been back inside this range since. And this was where there was apparently some initiating activity. Now, this is the area where there was a lot of initiating activity. You could argue it was this gap up, and that's totally legitimate. However, you get thrusts, right? So you got another thrust up here. You can see this day opened, touched the high, it gapped slightly, opened, and then went from there in these huge days over. So there's some initiating activity in there. And this little reset area, or whatever you want to call it, down to the 50 moving average, the purple line, we're back inside that range. Will we close the gap yet today, or will we continue to the downside? So that's the question we're looking for. Or will we just rotate right in here with a gap down and some potential room for further liquidation to the downside down to the bottom of this trend line? Okay, I've got a trend line here. Will we get a third touch? Or we will hit the 1618. It would make sense that if we come over here, well, this is a technique. When I'm going to the space where the next day's bars may play out, that we come down and intersect it towards the end of the week or in the first day of Monday, or first day of next week, Monday. All right, so moving back to the profiles, let's look at what happened here in lieu of the storyline. So this is today. Right now, it's either in the wave B of a zigzag down, okay, just looking at today as a standalone, or we're rotating, just rotating the rest of the day. Don't know. Now, one thing I want to point out is that we do have a reversal pattern. We have a pretty good reversal pattern. We have a lower low, we have a low, a lower low, and then a low that's higher than the prior two lows, and by quite a bit. And we also have quite a bit of volume built up here, and the volume point of control is up here at 39.20. That's quite a bit ways away from 39.03 half. So let's look back here also to see what potential downside there is before we look at the storylines that have played out. Let's go back to the 26th of July. Do I need to go to the 19th? Oh, this is something I want to point out. We do have a poor low on the 19th of July at 38.34. So I'm gonna make this pink, and I'm gonna make it thick, and I'll make it solid. Okay, just to remember that. So we got that poor low way back here, and it's quite a good low. But we also, if we scooch back a little bit, what do we have right here? We had looked like we were close to the other low. So we actually, is this a good low or not? You know what? I'm going to just to be safe, I'm going to put my line right here. I'm going to make it about 5 wide, and I'm going to make it thick, or solid, I mean. And I'm going to try to remember that this might be a poor low, and I guess my preferred color for that these days is pink. Well, let me make it pink first. Okay, so hopefully we'll remember that that's what that means at 38.20. That's quite a ways down, but that's on the 18th, so that's the 19th, and but we're talking about, what I want to get back to was the 20. Let me make the daily chart. Let's just review this here real quick. Right here. We've already taken this low out. What we want to go back to is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See this big bar right here, and even this bar. And I think that's actually the 19th. Okay, there we go. So it's the 19th. I looked at that earlier. So the 19th right here, okay, and then even possibly the day before. But let's just take it a piece at a time. We're looking in the 19th, and we are trading currently at 39.23. We got to a low at I can see a little window in another screen. The low is 39.03 half for today. So that's right here. 39.03 half. So we got down, and you can see there was poor structure. I mentioned earlier in the pre-market that we had poor structure underneath and even above. You saw those anomalies there. 39.3 half is right here. We got room even today yet. If we were to come down here, you've probably got stops below here, because look at this initiating activity out of the initial balance on that day, and even the initial balance was quite strong. So let's recognize that there is room for more downside here. Okay, there's some things that, as I like to term it, beckon. So that's all out of the way. Let's take a look at the storyboard here, and what I need to do again, I don't think I have the picture still up, and I'm going to take a screenshot of this so I can draw on it. Well, let me do it again. I want to get that conflicting data points bit. Let me see here. All right, just bear with me. All right. Okay, so we have a poor low in the overnight session. That's out of the way. We still have an overnight in the prior, overnight poor low. That should say poor low. I never went back and fixed that. In the prior overnight session, and a weak high on the prior day. I would say we have a weak high today because we never took out the overnight high. All right, the first story. Well, let's start down here. What didn't happen at all? Number 4, take out the previous high day with continuation. That has not happened as of yet. Doesn't look like it's happening today, but we still have about 3 or 4 hours yet. Re-enter the prior day's range. We'd never close the gap, so this didn't happen. Close gap from a greater than 10-point gap. We had a 20-point gap. The first idea was to maybe do a prairie dog where we went down through the overnight low and came back in, and try to get long with that, because we're down on the lows, or down so close to the overnight low, closer to the lows I think than we were to the highs, and that might happen, and based on the news that came out. So market internals don't support continuation early. Let me tell you about that. Market internals were strongly negative off the open, even though we did go up at one point a little bit. Okay, the tempo relatively slow. I would say it wasn't the highest confidence open, but it wasn't slow either. It was kind of mixed up. Okay, so we'll say, yeah, I wouldn't eliminate that. We would still try to close the gap. Positive market in terms of buying, negative selling. Well, we didn't have the high confidence open, and it was negative. So this was still a possibility, but it was a lower odds thing of happening, and lo and behold, it did not happen. Okay, let me just make this so it's always visible, and we'll point that out. I'll pull this back over, and again, the goal of this is to kind of dial into where we are now and what might happen the rest of the day. So you can see that we opened right here on the volume point of control, and this bar is 3 minutes long. This is a 3-minute opening range. I put in here, well, no, that's for a gap down, opening range, but I also didn't like it. That's just a technique. It's one of dozens of entries. You know, you can learn all kinds of trading entries all day long, but the only thing that's going to matter is context and risk management. You can take the same entry in a different kind of market and it won't work because the context is different. You could take a great entry and mismanage the trade, and you could say, well, that doesn't work. Well, at any rate, moving on. What I did not like about it is we opened in value in range of the overnight on a 20+ point gap down, and you know what? This is thick. This is when it's this like wound up in here, when you have this much built up volume and value, it's kind of like opening in the prior day's range in value, where there's a lot of chop back and forth. So it stayed, let me pull the 10 minute in here, and let's just take a look a little bit more granularly how that played out. So let's see, 10 minute right here. Okay, so we were up and down in here. I don't remember what 36, I don't know what this is, I'm taking it out, for a good deal of the time. When we did, let me shrink this up a little bit. So we did come down to, back this up, initially down to 23, which is all the way down here. Okay, so the first 10 minutes it came all the way down here, but it also went all the way up here. So on either side of this, especially if you got above this ledge right here, this might have been the best place to be looking for in the volume value area high, to be looking if you want to take a shot at closing the gap and maybe risking the VPOC. So that would be an option. Or once we came down here and got to the volume value area low at about 25, this might have been a trade. I took this, okay? This actually was, and risked the low. This was actually a good trade. So, I was flying in the face of the market internals being negative, but when it's like this, you get a lot of rotation first. And it really just did not seem to have the zip where it was going to be racing to the lows. It was a bit riskier, but it was worth something, okay? So, the closing the gap thing was really not a great idea. You had to really, look for something down here. If you were to wait till it got to where it was actually probably odds were higher, the fact is the context wasn't supporting it, the market didn't support it, it didn't work really well. It didn't close the gap, okay? So this didn't work. So what we had left was we gapped down 20+ points, gap down rules, opening range trade, you would have probably gotten chopped up. You would have been looking for reversals of some kind, or waited till it one time frame down, or waited till it got below the overnight low. And this was probably the best play, and I'll show you why. So we had strongly negative internals, we built value below the prior low a day, and we failed to close the gap early. Okay, so this was all working out, and it has worked out. But we're talking about what do we do now, because it kind of seems like, okay, the game's over. But let me relax this profile here. So on the 10 minute, let me pull that again, back in. Okay, we got below the overnight low right here. I'll make it blue, because that's what I use for the lows and highs of the overnight. And I don't have the volume profiles on here, but I will split it out in the, now you can see, by the way, we got below it, but then there was an opportunity. One of the ideas was to take out the overnight low and come back in. Well, this worked. This actually worked. Did it close the gap? Did it come back up to the highs? No, but this was worth a piece, okay? So to get long in here or front running it, you could have done that even. To get long in here, it goes from 21 basically to 31. That's 10 points, okay? Let me look at it on the, from right here, whoops, 21 up to 22, B period got up to 36. So that's that's a pretty good chunk. Pull this up again. Well, something's wrong. No, okay, no, when it came back in, it didn't get up to 36. That did that early. It got up to about 31-ish, okay? So you came back up to basically the open, and that was a nice trade, if somebody would have taken that. All right, well, C opened and drove down. So at this point, we had a low. Oh wait, one other thing I want to show you. Initially, the volume below the overnight low was, split this here. We built this whole profile. I'm sorry, volume profile. We had a double distribution basically. You had a distribution up here in A period. We had it down here, and it extended all the way down here. Now I have an S2 here, and I have like this green zone is kind of like what would be a supportive type of area, and it played out. When the volume started thinning out, and I was already liking this before we ever got down here. I wanted to buy in here. I bought at 10, okay, and I took it up to the where did I took it out for? I think 10 point at 20. I took it out at 20, and I don't remember why, but might have been the VPOC moved down at that point if I merged these together. But either way, that was an opportunity to see, like, okay, are we going to get continuation? Well, maybe not yet, all right. But one thing to bear in mind, we were building value or volume below the overnight low. So this was boding well for the downside, although there was a lot of, a back and forth. We went back inside and went higher up, all the way up to 31. C opened and drove down, and ultimately made a poor low with B, and then it continued, but we didn't get a ton of range extension. Now this sometimes is a tell in C period to me. Like if we don't get a big range extension in C period, that could mean we're either going to have a neutral day, it's going to flip over to the other side and have a little bit more of the same, or we're going to rotate or something. And so far, that's sort of been the case. Now again, remember there is more potential for the downside. I want to point out as well, we have a weak high in C. It's right on the, or E, it's right on the open of C, okay? Anyway, I'm going to merge these together, do all splits, okay? And what are we looking at going forward? Well, market internals are still strongly negative. There's a lot of potential for more downside. I think it's important to be careful on the longs. The tempo's slowed down. I don't like it either way at the moment. Right now, it's just a little bit sketchy. You'd want to look for real momentum to the downside, I think. But clearly, value is definitively lower. Remember, the further away we get, and we're not getting more volume until later in the day probably, we got a pretty strong volume point of control up here. So what I would look for is if we get another little extension to the downside, maybe down to 3,900, maybe even more, taking out that F and E low, I think it was, on the 19th, and maybe not taking a ton back. And then looking that we've gotten really far away from the volume point of control, that we're going to see a move back up. It's getting a little too far from home. Maybe not. Maybe we're just going to continue on down, and we'll have a real push in the later periods down to, again, 3,900 or lower, maybe even 3,890. So no idea. So I hope that's helpful. But the bottom line is I just wanted to talk about what didn't happen and what did happen. And there is a possibility for a rollover to the upside later today if what doesn't happen. So if what doesn't happen is we don't make any new lows, as the day unfolds, a lot of these shorts are not getting paid, and they've been getting paid for days, and at this point they may just say, let's roll it up at the end of this day, see what happens tomorrow. I don't know. So right now I'm looking at it as rotational, so a good play might be to trade the edges of the rotations, and then look for, if we do come back and we take away this, well, we'd have to get all the way down here. If we're getting all the way down here, we're probably going to get a poor low. Wait till you get a poor low, and then look for a break to the downside and try to get short. Maybe get short against the intraday value area low if you can. If you believe it's going down, you have reason to believe that on your indicators. So those are the thoughts, and I think that's going to be it for my my post-market session. That this will do. because as far as I'm concerned, I'm not interested anymore. Kind of the day's over for me. It's already almost 1 o'clock. I may check back mid-afternoon, see if anything's standing out to me. But hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it, and I hope you make a great rest of your day. Thanks a lot. Bye.